Today we're going to talk about the tragic loss of another submarine. This one is a German Type 209 1300 series Nanggala 402, run by Indonesia. The Indonesian Navy was lost this week. The story begins, sadly, with a naval exercise in the Bali Sea range. We don't know what day the submarine went underway, but we do know that on Tuesday, April 20th, she was underway. She transits through the Bali Strait northbound into the exercise area, and according to Admiral Yodo Margon, conducted 2 successful torpedo launches in the exercise area. On Wednesday, the following day, at 0300, after a long day of shooting exercise torpedoes 2 successfully, she requests to dive. She's in an area of about 700 meters of water depth in the exercise area, and she's given permission to dive, and she does. That is the last time anyone has heard from anyone on board the submarine. 0900 comes along, and she is due to make her morning report, and she does not. At this time, the submarine is considered missing. A sub-miss message is put out, and a rapid response is given. All right, let's talk about what could have happened. I've made a short list here of things that I think that are likely to have contributed to the loss of the submarine. The first and foremost is human error. The crew is in an exercise. It is 3 o'clock in the morning. They are tired, and they're trying to rig a submarine for dive at night. It is difficult to do under normal circumstances, and every step must be completed 100% in order to maintain watertight integrity of the submarine. It is very easy to mess up a rig for dive when you don't double check yourself properly, you don't follow the procedure because you're exhausted. So the most likely cause, in my opinion, that led to the sub missing and not making its radio report is human error, failure to rig for dive properly. Other things that certainly could have happened is a mechanical failure of watertight integrity. This is very likely to happen on a dive procedure because normally once you're submerged and on your operating depth, if you're going to have a mechanical failure, it would have already happened during the dive. So it is possible that there is a part of the submarine, a seal, a valve, something that goes outside the submarine that leads inside, failed during the dive as the pressure increased, as it's going down to its operational depth of, say, 50 or even 100 meters depth. That increase in outside pressure may have caused a failure of some kind of seal. This is equally as likely as human error. Electrical fire is probably it probably happened, maybe not as the initial cause, but the result of either one of the first 2 conditions could have easily led to an electrical fire, especially on a diesel electric submarine that has a very large battery well down in the bottom of the boat, which is the very first place any kind of seawater would go if it got inside the boat. This begins a cascade of failures that happen immediately, one right after the other. You would be shocked at how quickly this happens. And this is why people get killed in these environments. First thing that happens is loss of power. If they have electrical fire, they have to isolate the electrical buses causing the fire. They may not know when the fire begins what bus is causing it, so they may have shut down the incorrect bus, causing the fire to continue without lighting. Even if they shot down the correct bus, they would have to go to emergency lighting. And if it's a battery fire feeding the emergency lighting, they wouldn't even have that. They would be down to flashlights and battle lanterns at that point. In a smoke-filled compartment, if there's a fire, lack of visibility, exhaustion, confusion, all these factors lead in to these failures cascading to a loss of ship's control. Whatever the cause, the end result was a loss of ship's control, the inability to resurface the vessel through any means, propulsion, emergency blow, driving the ship to the surface, maintaining a ballast was lost. That ability to maintain ballast was lost. And all of these factors, even if just 1 or 2 of these happened, led to the loss of the submarine. So a sub-miss mariner call for assistance is issued and responded to immediately. I'm very impressed with the response so far. The location is approximately 60 miles north of Bali. That's the operating area that she was in. The depth in that area varies a little bit, but roughly 700 meters depth, which is over 2 times the crush depth of the submarine. Conditions right now, time of this recording, is a very good day. It's 79 degrees Fahrenheit, very mild conditions, partly cloudy, a sea state 2, which is very calm, light wind. These are very good conditions for submarine rescue. So the weather's on our side right now. One of the very first ships to respond to this call was Singapore's Swift Rescue Ship, which is a submarine or deep sea rescue vehicle ship. This ship is built to do this mission, and it's about a 48-hour journey away to the site. It's already en route to the site at the time of this recording. Singapore really stepped up, was ready for this, and responded right away. Of course, the Indonesian Navy themselves have responded with their own frigates, KRI 331 and 332. We'll go over each of these in detail. The corvette hospital ship is responding to the site to assist. They even have a mine hunter. It is unclear if any of these were part of the actual naval exercise, but these ships were close enough to respond right away, including helicopter support. So they have lots of good support coming in. We're going to quickly review what some of these ships look like and what they do. So Swift Rescue came into service in 2009. It's a diesel propulsion engine, can make about 14 knots. It's a shame it can't go a little bit faster to get there a little bit earlier, but what makes this ship so valuable is that it has a deep submergence rescue vehicle on board and facilities for it. It's not clear at the time of this recording if this ship already has the DSRV on board, but the United States has already responded by flying one of our own DSRVs over to Indonesia. So even if they don't have one with them now, they're going to have the American one shortly. So, good job for the United States and Australia, who's responded as well with their own fleet, and the Singapore rescue vessel coming together, helping out. And this is a picture of what the American one looks like, the old DSRV. All right, let's talk about the Indonesian Navy ships that are on site right now, sweeping the area with, maritime air patrol and these ships here. They have a couple of new frigates since 2017. They have 2 of these on site. This is the KRI Raiden and KRI Gusti. They have a very capable new sonar system, and they have CAPTAS, which is a passive and active towed array, and VDS. So they can use that. There's a picture of it there in the upper right to look at the bottom in detail and maybe see if there's an object down there that doesn't check with the chart, and that might be the submarine. The critical failure here is it's only a medium frequency sonar system. And to really get that high resolution side scan mapping that you need to see objects, you really need a higher frequency sonar than what they have. But they also have helo support, which is really good. So there's multiple capabilities on board these frigates that are going to come into play. The KRI Ditemukan, I messed up that name, I apologize for that. The corvette is on site with a helo pad. It doesn't have a hangar, but she does have some sonar capability as well, and is patrolling the area right now. So that's KRI 365 corvette. There's a hospital ship that we talked about. Dr. Soharso is either en route or on site by the time of this recording. She can do 15 knots. She wasn't that far away from the exercise. She is small boat capable. So not only do we have helos that can drop divers, we have small boats that can go out and pick them up. And if they manage to get any of the crew out of the submarine, they could easily, if they have to use a small boat, go out and get them. There's also a minesweeper, which is a really good vessel for finding objects on the bottom. I mean, that's its job. So as well as looking for mines, they can also look for submarines and other undersea objects. So the KRI Palu is underway as well, helping them out. These are all Indonesian Navy ships. Okay, so sub sunk as of Friday, April 23rd, the time of this recording. The sub is not just missing, it is definitely sunk. The Indonesian authorities have yet to make this call, which I completely understand, but we're making the call here now because the submarine is not on the surface, is not in communication, and is not under any apparent control. So that is the definition of sunk. If she's on the bottom, she's lost. But there is a highly unlikely scenario where she has lost control, but has not exceeded crush depth. That is extremely unlikely to happen, but apparently that's what the Indonesian government is hoping for. So that's why they haven't announced the sub sunk yet. Plus, they haven't found the sub yet, so they're keeping hope alive. But I believe it's a false hope, unfortunately. Let's talk a little bit about the Type 209 1300 series operated by Indonesia. Venezuela operates this particular type of 209 as well. It displaces 1390 tons. It's 59 meters long and about 7 meters a beam. It has 420 cell battery packs, which is the life-saving energy that's keeping anything that's still working, energized. It's also a major source of fire if there's any kind of flooding. So it's a double-edged sword there. She can make 11 knots on the surface. That's how she transited out to the exercise area. And her flank bell underway on the battery is just over 21 knots, which is pretty good for a diesel boat. It's a highly capable workhorse of a submarine, but it's also 40 years old. And even though you can maintain submarines, like this one apparently was pretty well maintained, a 40-year-old submarine eventually begins to have failures. And hopefully age probably played a part in this. Probably. The investigation eventually will come up with a conclusion on that. But I would say the ship's age is a factor. There's 53 souls on board. Apparently 50 of them were the crew, and they had 3 guests. Indonesian called them gunners. So maybe they were special forces, I'm not sure. But there was the crew plus 3 people, 53 souls total during this exercise. Here's a breakdown of what a Type 209 1300 series looks like. Going from top to bottom, the red arrows are the topside access hatches. The aft hatch is often submerged while even on the surface, but the forward hatch is always available. If there was any kind of rescue attempt below 600 feet, not meters, but feet, they would have to dock with these hatches because the rescue suits that they would use to ascend to the surface one at a time, or 2 or 3 people at a time, are only good down to about 600 feet. And that's really pushing it. Probably more like 400 feet, to be honest with you. But if they're anything lower than that, which they probably are, because it's 700 meters of water that they're in, their survival suits are not going to be used for free ascent. They're going to have to go down and get these guys. And if they do that, they're going to dock at these topside access hatches. If they can get the DSRV on there, that's going to be a tricky maneuver. The green arrow is the berthing, the yellow arrow is the control room, and the black arrows are the engine rooms. You can see with the purple arrow, the berthing area is shared with the torpedoes in the torpedo room, kind of a dual purpose there. And then the very bottom of the boat where the bilges are, and there's not much of equipment down there, just some tanks and stuff, is the battery wells, the 4 battery wells down there at the bottom. And if they have any kind of flooding that gets into the battery well, that is a serious problem. That becomes, a type Delta fire, metal burning, and it's the worst type of fire to have because if you add water to it by trying to put out the fire, you're just going to cause more fire. You have to use chemical or other means like CO2 to put out a battery fire. And that could have been part of this. All right, let's talk about submarine survival equipment real quick. This is equipment that every submariner is very familiar with. We have to use this in drills and in training. We actually break this stuff out. We don't just do theoretical read the books. We put this stuff on regularly and use oxygen candles regularly just so that we are familiar with the process. So a few major things here. First is the cold water survival suit. This is the suit that we would use to ascend if we were in less than 600 feet of water. The crew can put these on in a sunk, damaged submarine without ascending just to stay warm. Because even in the waters around, Bali, a submarine sitting on the bottom is going to get very cold very fast. So they're going to put these on to maintain warmth. They're going to try and breathe the air as long as they can. The authorities have put out that they have 72 hours of air. I'm not sure where they get that number from, but if that's the case, the way they're going to maintain the air quality is with oxygen candles, which are little canister candles that you set on fire, but they release oxygen. And there's a little safety furnace that they burn in, and that brings the oxygen out. Another thing that they have to consider is toxic gases in the air, like CO2. Every time you breathe in the oxygen, you're breathing out CO2. So they have CO2 curtains that you can see hanging there that just hang, and then as air goes over them, they absorb the CO2 out of the air, keeping the air quality, at least survivable, if not, So it's not as toxic. Now, there are other toxins that can come into the air, like hydrogen and other things that from, burning, if there was a fire, that could cause a toxic atmosphere as well. So if the atmosphere becomes completely unbreathable, they can shift to emergency air breathing. This is the masks that they would wear, that they would don in the case of a fire. So that certainly would work even after the fire is out. They could continue to breathe air from the high pressure air flasks around the submarine. Assuming those flasks weren't completely drained, trying to emergency blow or used for some other use to get the buoyancy back to positive and bring the submarine back to the surface, that air is reduced to a breathable pressure that the whole crew can use, adding fresh air to the survivability equation. So between the candles, the CO2 curtains, their survival suit, and the EAB reserved air, they could live for quite a while down there if there's no flooding, if there's no fire, if there's not additional, problems going on. So this is the picture of the crew and the submarine in the background there. This just gives you an idea of the number of people on board and some of the faces of the men we probably have lost. My condolences to the family. I'm really sorry to make this video. I didn't want to do it, but its story needs to be told, and these are the facts as we know them right now. So, let's just hope peace is with all these men right now. Thanks for watching, everybody.